My friends, I want to speak to you today about something deep, something urgent, something that will change your life if you truly grasp it. Before God blesses you, He will do something first. You see, we often pray for blessings, we seek God's favor, we want the abundance of His grace in our lives, but do we understand the process? Do we understand that before the harvest, there must be a planting? Before the sunrise, there must be the darkness of the night. Before the blessing, there is a time of testing, of preparation, of refining. God's blessings are not cheap. They are not handed out carelessly. He is a loving Father, but He is also a refining fire. He does not pour out His richest gifts without first making sure that we are ready to receive them. Too often we want the reward without the discipline, the promise without the process. But God knows what we need, and He knows that before He blesses us, He must prepare us. Look at the great men and women of the Bible. Look at Abraham. God promised him that he would be the father of many nations. But before that blessing came, he had to walk a long road of faith. He had to leave his home, journey into the unknown, and even face the ultimate test, being willing to sacrifice his son. God was shaping him, molding him, preparing him for the blessing. Look at Joseph. God gave him a dream, a vision of greatness. But before that dream became a reality, Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and locked in a prison. Years of suffering, years of hardship. But all that time, God was preparing him. And in the end, Joseph rose to be second only to Pharaoh in all of Egypt. The blessing came, but it came after the preparation. And what about Moses? Called by God to lead his people out of Egypt, but first Moses had to spend 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep. 40 years of waiting. 40 years of learning humility, learning obedience, learning dependence on God. Before he could lead, he had to be led. Before he could be a deliverer, he had to be shaped by God. Even Jesus, the very Son of God, did not step immediately into his ministry. The Bible tells us that he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness where he fasted for 40 days and was tempted by the devil. Before the miracles, before the preaching, before the cross, there was a time of testing. Why? Because God is not only concerned with blessing you, He is concerned with making you into the person who can handle the blessing. Some of you today are in a season of waiting. Some of you are in a season of testing. Some of you feel like God has forgotten you. But I tell you, He has not forgotten you. He is refining you. He is making you into the person who can carry the blessing when it comes. Think of gold. Gold is beautiful, valuable, precious. But do you know how gold is purified? It is placed in the fire. The heat rises, the impurities rise to the surface, and the goldsmith skims them away. And he keeps the gold in the fire until he can see his own reflection in it. That is what God is doing with you. He is refining you in the fire of trials, in the fire of waiting, in the fire of discipline. He is burning away the things that do not belong. And when He can see His own image reflected in you, then the blessing will come. Some of you are crying out to God, saying, Lord, why am I going through this? Why are these doors not opening? Why is my prayer unanswered? And God is saying, I am preparing you. I am working in you. Trust me. The waiting is not wasted. The pain is not pointless. The fire is not for your destruction. It is for your purification. You see, God's blessings are not just about prosperity, not just about success. The greatest blessing is to be made into the image of Christ. The greatest blessing is to walk closely with God, to know His presence, to be used by Him for His glory. And that does not happen overnight. It happens through the fire. So what must we do? First, we must surrender. We must stop fighting the process and trust the one who is in control. we must say, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. Second, we must stay faithful. Joseph was faithful in the prison before he was promoted to the palace. David was faithful tending sheep before he was anointed king. Be faithful where you are. Be faithful in the little things. God knows. God is watching. And third, we must keep our eyes on Jesus. Do not focus on the hardship. Do not focus on the waiting. Focus on the one who is with you in the fire. He has not left you. He has not abandoned you. He is walking with you, guiding you, strengthening you. And when the time is right, when the work is complete, when the refining is done, the blessing will come. My friends, do not lose heart. Do not give up. God is at work. He is doing something greater than you can imagine. He is shaping you for something beyond what you can see. Trust Him. Hold on. Because when the time comes, the blessing will be more than you ever dreamed. God bless you. My friends, listen to me carefully, because this is a message that can change the course of your life. Many of you are asking God for a breakthrough. Many of you are on your knees crying out for His favor, His blessings, His abundance in your life. And you are wondering, Lord, when? Lord, why do I still struggle? But I want to tell you today, before God blesses you, He will prepare you. Before God pours out His blessings, He will take you through a process that will shape you, strengthen you, and make you into the person who can carry the weight of the blessing. So many of us want the promise, but we do not want the process. We want the victory, but we do not want the battle. We want the success, but we do not want the discipline. We pray for a harvest, but are we willing to endure the season of planting, the season of waiting, the season of watering? My friends, God's blessings are not cheap. They are not handed out like trinkets at a market. He is a God who prepares His people, who molds them, who refines them in the fire so that they will not be destroyed by the very blessing they seek. Look at the story of David. God anointed him as king when he was just a shepherd boy. But did he immediately take the throne? No. Before David could wear the crown, he had to endure years of hardship, years of running for his life, years of being hunted by Saul. He was hiding in caves when he had already been chosen by God. He had the promise, but he had to go through the process. God was shaping him in those dark times. He was teaching him how to rely on God alone. He was forming him into the king that Israel needed. Some of you have a promise from God. You know that He has called you to something greater. But you find yourself in a cave, in a wilderness, in a season of waiting, and you are asking, Lord, why? Why is it taking so long? But God is saying to you, I am working. I am preparing you. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. I am shaping you into the person I need you to be, so that when the blessing comes, you will be ready. Look at the story of Job, a righteous man, a man who feared God, a man who was blessed beyond measure. But God allowed him to go through suffering, to lose everything, his wealth, his children, his health. And yet, Job remained faithful. He did not understand, he did not see the full picture, but he held on to his faith, and in the end, God restored him, blessed him with double what he had before. But what was the real blessing? It was not just the wealth, not just the restoration. It was that Job knew God in a way he had never known before. He said, my ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Some of you are in a storm right now. Some of you are walking through the valley, and you are wondering, Lord, where are you? But I tell you today, He is right there with you. He is working in the fire. He is refining you in the furnace. He is purifying you like gold. And when you come out, you will be stronger, you will be wiser, you will be ready for the blessing He has in store. There is a pattern in the Bible, a pattern that cannot be ignored. Before every great blessing, before every great calling, before every great move of God, there is a time of preparation. Noah had to build the ark before he saw the flood. Abraham had to leave his homeland before he saw the promised land. Joseph had to endure betrayal and imprisonment before he saw the fulfillment of his dreams. The Israelites had to walk through the wilderness before they could enter the land of milk and honey. Jesus had to go to the cross before he was resurrected in glory. And my friends, it is the same for you. God is not withholding his blessings. He is preparing you for them. Some of you are asking for financial blessings, but God is teaching you stewardship first. Some of you are asking for a powerful ministry, but God is teaching you humility first. Some of you are asking for a spouse, but God is shaping you into the person who can love and lead well. Some of you are asking for promotion, but God is refining your character so that when you get there, you will not be destroyed by pride. Do not despise the process. Do not resent the waiting. Do not fight against the preparation. The delay is not denial. The waiting is not wasted. God is doing something in you, something deep, something eternal. He is building endurance in you. He is stretching your faith. He is making you into a vessel that can hold the weight of his blessing. You see, if God gave you the blessing too soon, it could destroy you. A tree must have deep roots before it can bear heavy fruit. If the roots are not strong, the tree will collapse under the weight of its own blessing. That is why God takes time to develop you, to deepen your roots, to strengthen your foundation. So when the blessing comes, you will not be shaken, you will stand firm. Some of you are frustrated because you see others being blessed while you are still waiting. You see others receiving their breakthrough while you are still in the fire. But let me tell you, God's timing is perfect. Do not compare your journey to someone else's. Do not measure God's plan for you by what he is doing in someone else's life. Your path is unique. Your process is designed specifically for you. What God has for you is for you. And when the time is right, it will come. God is looking for people who will trust him even when they do not understand. People who will be faithful even when the doors are not opening. People who will walk by faith and not by sight. He is looking for people who will say, Lord, I do not see the whole picture, but I trust you. I do not like the fire, but I trust you. Because the truth is, the greatest blessing is not what God can give you. It is God himself. The greatest blessing is his presence, his guidance, his hand upon your life. And when you have him, when you walk with him, when you are already blessed beyond measure. So my friends, I urge you, do not give up in the waiting. Do not lose faith in the fire. God is doing something in you, something greater than you can see. He is preparing you for something beyond what you can imagine. And when the time is right, the blessing will come. And when it does, you will look back and realize that the process was necessary, the fire was necessary, the waiting was necessary. Because through it all, God was shaping you, molding you, making you into the person he created you to be. And when that day comes, when you finally step into the blessing, you will not just receive it, you will be ready for it. You will carry it with wisdom, with grace, with humility. And you will know that it was not by your strength, not by your power, but by the hand of Almighty God. My friends, let me remind you today that before God blesses you, he will prepare you. And sometimes that preparation will come in ways you do not expect, in ways you do not understand, in ways that might even make you question everything. But let me tell you this, God is faithful. He does not waste pain. He does not allow a single tear to fall from your eyes without reason. He does not take you through the valley without a purpose on the other side. Some of you are asking, God, why is this happening to me? Why am I struggling? Why am I facing opposition? Why does it seem like every time I take one step forward, I get pushed 2 steps back? But listen to me. The resistance you are facing is part of your preparation. The battles you are fighting today are shaping you for the blessings of tomorrow. Look at Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' closest disciples, but he was impulsive, he was prideful, he was quick to speak and slow to listen. And when Jesus was arrested, Peter denied him 3 times. He failed in the moment he thought he was strong. He was broken. He was ashamed. He wept bitterly. But Jesus was not finished with him. After his resurrection, Jesus restored Peter. And that same man who had failed so miserably became the leader of the early church, preaching the gospel with boldness, healing the sick, casting out demons, leading thousands to Christ. What happened? God refined him. God humbled him. God took his failure and used it to prepare him for the blessing that was coming. And some of you today feel like you have failed too much. You feel like you have made too many mistakes, like you have let God down too many times. But let me tell you, your failure is not final. Your mistakes do not cancel God's plan for your life. If you surrender to him, he will take what was meant for evil and he will take what was broken and make it whole. He will take what was lost and restore it. But you must be willing to go through the process. You must be willing to let him mold you. You must be willing to stay faithful even when you do not understand. Because if you try to skip the process, if you try to rush the preparation, you will end up stepping into a blessing that you are not ready for, and what was meant to be a gift will become a burden. I think of the prodigal son. He wanted his inheritance right away. He did not want to wait. He did not want the process. He did not want the discipline. And so his father gave him what he asked for. And what happened? He wasted it. He spent it recklessly. He ended up in a pig pen, hungry and broken. He received the blessing too soon, and he was not ready to handle it. Some of you are asking God for a blessing, and he is saying, not yet. Not because he does not love you, not because he does not want to bless you, but because he knows that if he gives it to you now, it will ruin you instead of bless you. So he waits. He waits until your heart is ready. He waits until your character is strong enough to handle the weight of what he wants to give you. Think of a child who wants to drive a car. The father loves the child, but he does not hand over the keys right away. Not because he is cruel, not because he wants to withhold good things, but because he knows that if he gives the car before the child is ready, it will lead to destruction. So he teaches, he trains, he prepares. And when the time is right, when the child is mature, when the child is ready, then the keys are given. That is how God works. That is why you must trust his timing. That is why you must not grow weary in the waiting. That is why you must keep walking by faith even when you do not see the blessing yet, because your time is coming. But here is the question. What will you do while you wait? Will you grow bitter? Or will you grow better? Will you complain, or will you praise him in the waiting? Will you walk away, or will you stand firm in faith? Because the waiting season is a testing season. The waiting season is where God sees what is truly in your heart. Will you be faithful when no one is watching? Will you be obedient when there is no reward yet? Will you trust him even when everything in your life seems to be standing still? Look at Paul and Silas. They were in prison. They had been beaten. They had been wrongfully accused. But what did they do? Did they complain? Did they doubt God? Did they say, Lord, why are we here? We were just trying to serve you. No, they sang praises. They worshiped in the prison. And in the midnight hour, God sent an earthquake. The prison doors flew open, the chains fell off, they were set free. Why? Because they were faithful in the waiting. They were faithful in the trial. And when the time was right, God moved. Some of you are in your midnight hour. Some of you are locked in a situation that seems impossible. And God is watching. Will you praise Him now before the breakthrough comes? Will you trust Him now before the blessing arrives? Will you walk by faith now before you see the result? Because if you can be faithful in the prison, you will be faithful in the palace. If you can be faithful in the small things, God will trust you with greater things. If you can worship Him in the valley, He will take you to the mountain. God is looking for people who will trust Him completely, who will say, Lord, I do not understand, but I trust you. Lord, I do not see the way, but I trust you. Lord, I do not feel the blessing yet, but I know it is coming, and I will keep walking by faith. And when you have that kind of faith, nothing can shake you. When you have that kind of trust, no storm can destroy you. When you have that kind of obedience, no weapon formed against you will prosper. So, my friends, I urge you, stay faithful, stay obedient, stay in the process. Do not give up. Do not let go of your faith. Because when God blesses you, He will bless you beyond what you can imagine. When God moves, He will move in a way that no man can stop. When God opens the door, no one will be able to close it. But first, He must prepare you. First, He must shape you. First, He must refine you. And if you trust Him through it, if you hold on through the trials, if you remain steadfast in the waiting, then when the blessing comes, you will be ready for it. And it will not just be a blessing to you, it will be a blessing to everyone around you. Because when God blesses you, it is not just for you, it is so that you can be a blessing to others. So do not despise the process. Do not despise the preparation. Do not despise the fire. Because through it, God is making you into the person He has called you to be. And when the blessing comes, you will look back and realize that every tear, every trial, every struggle was worth it because God was with you through it all. And His plan for your life is greater than anything you could ever dream. May God bless you. And my friends, let me remind you that when God prepares you, it is because He is getting ready to trust you with something greater. He is not just refining you for the sake of it. He is refining you because there is a calling on your life. There is a purpose you have yet to step into. There are things He has planned for you that require you to be stronger, wiser, and more dependent on Him than ever before. Some of you are going through struggles right now and you think it is a sign that God has forgotten you, but in reality it is a sign that He is working on you. If the enemy is fighting you, if the road seems hard, if the obstacles seem endless, it is because there is something powerful on the other side of this season. The devil does not waste his time attacking people who have no future. If you are under attack, it is because there is a destiny on your life that the enemy is trying to stop. But he cannot stop what God has started. He cannot cancel what God has spoken. Think about a seed. When a seed is planted, it is buried in darkness. It is covered in dirt. It is pressed down. And for a time, it looks like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, there is growth, there is transformation, there is preparation. And when the time is right, that seed breaks through the soil and begins to bear fruit. Some of you feel like you have been buried. You feel like you have been pressed down. You feel like you are in darkness. But let me tell you, you are not buried to be forgotten. You are planted to grow. God is working in you even when you cannot see it. And when the time is right, He will bring you into the blessing He has prepared for you. So hold on, trust the process, stay faithful, because what God has for you is greater than you can imagine. And when the blessing comes, you will know it was all worth it. My friends, as we stand at the edge of this message, I want you to take one thing with you. God is not against you. He is for you. The delays, the struggles, the refining fire, the waiting, they are not punishments. They are preparations. Before God blesses you, He will shape you, mold you, and strengthen you so that you can carry the blessing with wisdom, with humility, and with endurance. Do not lose heart in the waiting. Do not grow weary in the process. Do not walk away from the very thing that is preparing you for the breakthrough you have been praying for. Because when the time is right, when God knows you are ready, the doors will open, the chains will break, and the blessing will come in a way that no one can deny it was the hand of God. So trust Him, trust His plan, trust His timing. Stand firm in faith, knowing that the God who called you is faithful. And when your blessing finally arrives, you will not just rejoice in what He has given, you will rejoice in who He has made you to be in the process. May you walk forward with confidence, knowing that the best is yet to come. May your faith remain strong in every season. And may you always remember God is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. Hold on, stay faithful, and watch what He will do. May God bless you.